Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad to see you again this week, that you're joining our show. We're very glad for people like you, people that are interested in the issues that are happening in our cities. If you haven't watched our show before, each week we'll have somebody on from one of the 9 cities in Northwest Community Television's viewing area to update us and help you understand what's happening in your city, what's going to happen, and then if there's any issues that really resonate, that you really care about, we'll encourage you to call your mayors and city council people and get into communication with them, because it is important for good government to have mayors and city councils, city staff, and the residents of a community in communication, talking with each other on the important issues. So we're glad that you're with us tonight. And we're very happy to welcome tonight Dan Ryan, who's on the Brooklyn Center City Council.
Thanks, Juanita. Great to be with you.
So we're glad to have you back with us again, updating us, letting us know what's happening in your city.
Good.
And you've been on my show before, so you know that I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself out there and let people know a little bit about your background and then your time on the City Council.
Thanks, Nita. I'd be glad to do that. I grew up in Brooklyn Center, longtime resident, went to Earl Brown Elementary, graduated from Brooklyn Center High School, moved on to the University of Minnesota, took a bachelor's degree. I moved away from the city in my college years, but I returned in 1991 when my wife and I bought our home and stayed. As the saying goes, Brooklyn Center, great place to start, great place to stay. And I've
you prove it.
Thank you. I've served on the City Council since 2007.
What is something about Brooklyn Center that a lot of people might not be aware of?
Well, you know, I thought about that a little bit, and I ran across something that is just a delightful little story.
Okay.
You know, I've always wondered about where the name Shingle Creek came from, and I always thought it was kind of a funny handle for the local stream. I learned that before the Civil War, in the years of the early settlement, Brooklyn Township, which is where Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center came from, the area just east of Twin Lakes was heavily wooded. In 1852, in response to local demand, a sawmill was established on the mouth of one of the streams that empties into the Mississippi. And at the mouth of that stream, that sawmill, its principal product was shingles. And there came the name, the Shingle Creek.
Oh, that's fun. Now that is something I had no idea, and so I'm sure we brought a new piece of information to a lot of people, right?
Well, it's a delightful little story, and it's kind of how those place names happen.
Yeah, they come from little incidents, people that were there.
Right. And of course, Brooklyn Township got that name because the earliest settlers, many of them came from a place in Michigan, which was Brooklyn Township.
Now, Brooklyn Center has done a number of things to help promote citizens getting involved, engaged with the city, that you're really reaching out to people to try get them involved. And that's been one of the strategic goals of your city council, right?
Absolutely, Anita. And actually, citizen engagement has become central to the way we try to do business as we seek to truly serve our residents and our customers. For example, at Public Works, when we do the planning for our trails, we have an open house to the folks who live along the route, and we ask them what they want. For example, if they would like more improvements or user-friendly benches for the bus stops. Or even at the event that we had earlier in the spring for the 57th Avenue Trail, we had representatives from the Met Council who would pass on those requests regarding the bus stops. And we've had 4 open houses. 4 open houses for the Highway 252 planning, because we wanted to get feedback, responses hear the concerns of citizens along the 252 corridor.
And that's kind of like a beginning stage of doing something, right?
Yes, and that's really a long, extended conversation, and we're just at the point where the council may, in the near future, decide on the concept, and then it'll have to go to the Highway Department, Minnesota Department of Transportation. They will determine if the design is acceptable. They will draw up the more complete plans. Then it's a matter of getting it on the MNCHIP, the priority project list of the Transportation Department. But you know, I like to use this comment that to put this into focus, because in the past the government, or a government, would come to people with a complete set of plans, and say to the people they're supposed to serve, here is what we're going to do for you. And sometimes people will react, oh, this is what they're going to do to us. And so I want to get away from where people feel like we're doing something to them, as opposed to, we want to invite you into the conversation, and do something with you. And we'd like you to help us to define what that something is. So that's really the thrust of it. And I fear that I may leave out some good examples of that, but as we go on and talk about this, perhaps that will fit in the conversation.
Yeah, so maybe you can tell us what are some ways this can be done, because people might say, oh, that's a good idea, but how do you really accomplish it?
Well, I think, you know, first of all, there's the real commonplace things that cities will do. We have an interactive feature in the website called eCitizen, and folks who are very facile with websites can easily find eCitizen. They can present a query, and the system will direct the query to the proper staff person who can give them the best answer. And generally speaking, the response is very prompt. And we also we have the old tried and true citizen volunteer commissions. They're very helpful. And then we also have there's extensive outreaches. Some of the things I've mentioned, like through the police department. You know, that's helped us so much in that domain. And we also have now a youth advisory council, because, you know, our Brooklyn Bridge Alliance is a facilitator that will go out and try to manage and develop relationships with service providers, nonprofits, that can enhance opportunities for youth. But we also like to be advised by youth. And again, learn what they identify as important, what they identify as their needs. We learn what their expectations are.
Yeah, and Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park have worked very closely together on meeting youth needs, right?
Yes, that's a real groundbreaking effort, I believe. And again, it's a joint powers that includes, in addition to Brooklyn Park, includes the county, our 4 school districts, and faith-based groups. And that way, those entities can put together more resources, and we're greater than the sum of our parts. We also, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, fund an executive director, a professional who can, again, work for us and get the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance to really function as a facilitator.
And part of out of the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance, then there's a specific program called BrookLink for students, for teenagers?
Yes, I'm very pleased you asked about that. BrookLink is the job placement career development component of the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance. They've hired a facilitator, Luis Salado Herrera, very fine young fellow. My apologies if I haven't pronounced his name quite right, but I was privileged to hear a presentation by Luis at the Brooklyn Center Business Association, where he talked about the success of the first year of Brooklink in placing young people in jobs, not just to learn skills,
right,
but to learn all the things they need to be successful in the future economy. Give them encourage them to find a career path,
right,
continue their education and continue their training, and to develop the kind of professionalism that they'll need to be successful. And they placed 29 of our youth in jobs, and of the participating companies, all 29 said that they would be very pleased to participate again, to hire more Brooklyn kids. And that was just wonderful to hear that, because you and I, when we started out, there were a lot of job opportunities.
Oh, there were in the past.
Little things we could do.
Right.
In my case, I bagged groceries, I pumped gas. You know, I had friends that did a number of those sort of odd jobs that many of them have gone away.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we pump our own gas, we bag our own groceries.
Right.
You go to a parking ramp, and there's an automatic payment mechanism. Right. So those are little things, but there's still opportunities out there. But I think it's harder for kids to find to get a start, to find that first job.
Right.
And that first job is so important for all those reasons.
So this Brooklink is an ongoing program, right?
Yes, yes. It's one of the elements that I was very vocal about saying that should be part of Brooklink. And I'm pleased that Rebecca Gilgan, the executive director, has Luis Herrera doing that work. I think he's doing a great job.
And then your city also has an opportunity for residents to learn more about what's happening in your city, and you call it Brooklyn Center University, or BCU.
Yes, BCU.
Tell us about that.
It's an 8-week course designed to give residents inside and behind-the-scenes view of local government. We offer what essentially are seminars held monthly. They are about 90 minutes, I believe, and department heads, experts, folks that actually do the work in the city, do presentations, explain their work and how they serve the public. And they'll do things like take people on tours of the Public Works Department, the Police Department, Fire Department, and those employees, supervisors will explain their work, and it gives folks a real direct sense of our operations programs and activities.
Right.
And it's a great way to learn about what we really do, and may encourage someone to get more involved in.
Now, Brooklyn Center has also been working, along with many of our other suburbs, on preserving and improving your neighborhoods, because we all have suburbs that are aging, right? Now, what has happened in Brooklyn Center with one aspect of neighborhoods where you were identifying and naming the neighborhoods, and then what's happening there, and what kind of results have you seen from it?
The council approved the concept when it was brought to us to allow for defining neighborhoods and naming neighborhoods, and we thought the most straightforward way to do that would be to draw boundaries that would be joined with their park.
Right.
And for the size of our city, we have over 500 acres of parkland, so we got a lot of park space. 21 parks, and so the neighborhoods so named are named for the parks. And we haven't seen a lot of response at this point, but I think it's just a matter of people getting used to referring to their neighborhoods by name. And there has only been one organized neighborhood association as such. It may take time. But,
it would.
But I think the most important thing to remember, though, is that we have extraordinary participation in Neighborhood Watch, over 200 neighborhood groups.
Right.
So it isn't that there isn't interest, it's just a matter of it gaining traction. And I think Neighborhood Watch just speaks volumes about the interest that neighbors have in taking care of each other and looking out for each other.
No, and there are several programs for renovating housing that people can take part in.
Yes, we have a couple of programs. There's the Renew Sales Incentive Program and the Renew Loan Program.
Okay.
Now, there are loans available through the Renew program. However, that's been used mostly for the sales incentive program. That's been very popular. I believe we sold 137 homes through the Renew Purchase Incentive Program. And what that offers is up to $10,000 for down payment and closing costs. And it actually is a forgivable grant if the purchaser lives in the property for more than 5 years. And of course, we only offer that to people who will buy the property to be their sole residence. And of course, then we have income restrictions where, so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past during the mortgage fiasco, where people have to have a certain minimum income. But of course, we don't allow that that loan, that valuable loan, to go to people whose income is high enough so they don't really need it. So that cuts off somewhere above $90,000 for a family of 4. Then we also have a program that is known as the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which involves, we use a general contractor, GMIC, the Greater Metropolitan Housing Consortium, and what they do is they go out and actually hire the contractors. We go and we when properties are available that are distressed, need a lot of work, but are worth saving. We have GMIC go in there, and remodeling I think is not even a sufficient reference. They rebuild the properties, remodel them, and they do a great job. They look like new houses on the inside and out. And we've sold those properties for more than the asking price. We've done 14 of those. We'll be doing 2 more this year. And the real upshot of that is when you see one of those properties go into a neighborhood, it gives the neighborhood a tremendous lift because it encourages all that private investment. People see that house, and they want to do as much as they can.
On their own.
On their own, absolutely. And then the Renew and Rebuild program, this is where the city, through its own resources, through the TIF districts, we can devote 15% of our TIF revenue in those districts to acquiring and removing blighted properties. There's been a few of those because we have a few homes that are very, very old. Some cases they've been fire damaged or very elderly people passed away and they've been vacant. Well, we bought those properties, land banked the land, and then we have sold them to a developer, Novak and Flick, and they've built newer, larger homes in the $250,000 to $275,000 range. More up to date, larger features, and those homes also have sold readily. And we've done 6 of those. I believe we'll be doing 2 more this year.
So a lot of work going on into renovating homes and improving the look of a neighborhood, and then kind of encouraging the neighborhood to spruce itself up,
Absolutely. And of course, we had a very aggressive single-family home preservation effort because the city suffered an unprecedented number of vacant properties due to the foreclosure crisis. And we had a duty, I believe, to preserve those homes, keep them in good condition, secure them from illegal entry, because you know what happens with vacant houses. They were under our new ordinance. They were required to the mortgage company or bank that had them under control. They were required to keep them up to code and even mow the lawns. And then we use both the Renew program and other incentives to get those homes back into use as owner-occupied homes. And again, as I said, we sold 137 through the Renew program. We also had made available fix-up loans of up to $50,000 with interest as low as 3% to qualified.
The Star Tribune had an article about tax increment financing, so I've been talking with people from a lot of different cities to see what's happening in any individual city. Now, my understanding is originally it was set up to deal with blighted areas of a city and bring in new jobs, but then there have been some changes over time.
Well, tax increment financing is not really one legal regime.
Okay.
For example, I was an intern with the Minneapolis Housing Redevelopment Authority more years ago than I care to recall. And as an intern, I worked with the redevelopment staff.
Right.
And of course, the city of Minneapolis has done TIF for as long as it's been around. But over those many years, the TIF laws have gone through various iterations.
Oh, yes.
So it would be very easy for me to talk about TIF and how TIF can be used, and in very short order say things that are inaccurate. But I think the real upshot of this is for Brooklyn Center.
Right.
Is we look at this on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
So there is a provision in the law that is current and it has been ongoing. It's called the but-for provision.
Okay.
That, but for this action, in other words, helping the developer to overcome those extraordinary costs, to remove old infrastructure, take down blighted buildings, and other improvements that would be needed so that the project could go forward.
Right.
And if the developer was doing that on his own, it wouldn't be feasible. They'd go out to Rogers, great community, but there's open property the last time I checked that you could develop in a greenfield. You wouldn't have to bear those costs. But in order to get a developer to come in, as we did with Shingle Creek Crossing, it's necessary to only give as much assistance as is needed so that we're all on a equal footing, we're all on a level playing field. And for example, with Shingle Creek Crossing, very complex project. We really needed to do something with the old mall. We brought in an expert third party, our financial development consultant, Springstead, and they reviewed all the financials, reviewed all the costs of the developer would incur, and came up with, helped us to develop a financing plan with TIF. And again, Walmart came in. They wanted to be one of the early developers, or early presence, I should say. And they're actually not part of the Shingle Creek Crossing TIF district. They went to the old Penny space. And because they did that, they wanted to get in there right away. And as part of the developer Gatlin strategy to get them up and running early on, to draw traffic to the site.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, Walmart ended up eating a disproportionately large percentage of those site preparation costs, removing the parking lot, removing the asbestos, tearing down the old mall. And it's not often, I'm very, very pleased and proud that we got our money's worth out of Walmart. Too many cities regrettably are on the other end of that. So just to be clear, we're careful not to give a developer any more than is needed to put us on that level playing field. And so we look at these projects on a case-by-case basis. And then there's the example like because Luther Automotive was able to buy and get control of property that was very ideal for the kind of operation.
Sure.
Car sales, car dealerships, right off of the Metro freeway system, 694. They're on Brooklyn Boulevard. So all the city had to do in that case was simply to redraw the boundary lines, replat the properties that Luther had already purchased. And then that gives us a great deal of advantage because there's no TIF cost involved.
Right.
And we wouldn't give them any TIF because it wasn't necessary.
Right. And now, for people to understand what the TIF is the property is getting taxes of this amount. I'm going to just use my hands.
Sure.
Now, when you build the new piece of new business on the property, your taxes are going to go up quite a bit higher.
Right.
So from what they're getting now to what there is higher is money that the city can use to pay off bonds, right?
Yes, exactly that.
That you spend on some of the things you've just mentioned, right?
Under the TIF statutes are considered to be legal and appropriate development costs. Again, just so that older cities, whether it's a site in Minneapolis or St. Paul, South St. Paul, Richfield, Brooklyn Center, so that you put that property on a level playing field with a green field out in ex-suburban metropolitan area.
So it's a good tool for suburbs that are a little bit older, right?
It's a necessary tool because, again, without making that effort and incurring those costs, you would get no development.
Right.
Now, there are some people who claim that we should never do anything like that, just improve our streets, make the city look better, perhaps do a project like we did with Bass Lake Road. You recall, last time I was here, we talked about that extensively. Yeah. Really great project. We benefited from the American Recovery Reinvestment Act of 2008, and we put that through. But if we'd only done that, would we have gotten Shingle Creek Crossing if we hadn't done just enough as and no more, but just enough as what the consultant told us needed to that gap finance in overcoming $19 to $20 million to clear the old mall. So we would be still staring at the old mall.
Right. So it's a good tool. Well, I want to thank you so much. We've covered a lot of information about Brooklyn Center, and we hope that you've found some issues that are niggling your interest. And if you have, and you're in Brooklyn Center, contact Dan Ryan. But if it's something that you're interested in, contact your own cities and see what's happening. We'll look for you to join us next week. Bye.